struggle to act for nature, to understand how important nature is for our life, our well-being, our health, our progress, and everything that we hope from life and hope to achieve is connected to nature. And joining me in conversation today is a remarkable human being. She's one of my favorite people, and she is dynamic. She uses her heart and her ability to write powerfully and beautifully to work in conservation, and she's a contributor, a writer for Sanctuary Asia magazine, which is something that many of us have read growing up, and we continue to read and we learn so much from. I certainly do. And she champions many national campaigns, mobilizing environmental awareness and conservation efforts, and she's an amazing person. I'm just going to check if she's joined us. Sent a request. She's punctual as usual. Thank you, Kara. Thank you everyone for joining us. I hope you're having a wonderful day. It's World Environment Day 2020, and the theme is biodiversity, #for nature. Kara, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I can't tell you how many people were so excited about us having this conversation today, and I kept saying I saved the best for the last because Tara, you and Vivek, who I will be speaking with later in the evening, are two exceptional human beings who have really shaped my understanding of what is happening in our country, how much more we need to do to conserve our biodiversity, our wildlife, our ecosystems, and whether it is through the books that you've given me to read, or it's the many conversations we've had, or the campaigns that we've worked together on. And I really wanted for all of these wonderful people who joined us here today, because unfortunately, given the pandemic, we're all spending World Environment Day at home, and we're trying to use technology to mobilize action and of course spread awareness. So tell me, what got you started, Kara? I know a lot about your life, but I'm going to ask you questions because not too many people would know. Hi, Ananya saying hello, and Aman Sharma is saying hi, and they're sending you many green hearts. Tell us, where did this all begin?
Okay, so, I very often in my life, I meet people who tell me, you're so lucky, you've always known what you want to do. I haven't always known what I want to do, but I've always known that I've loved animals. And ever since I was a little girl of 2 or 3 years old, I would be chasing the dogs in the neighborhood and, being just obsessive about animals in general. I'm very lucky. I've been lucky enough to be born to parents who encouraged all of this and never tried to hold me back. So I lived a life where I had a very idyllic childhood. I went for holidays to national parks every year. I, read a lot of books. I was told about conservation and about wildlife. But I think there were two very formative experiences in my early teens and preteens. One was that at 11 years of age, Kids for Tigers came to my school. Kids for Tigers is an environmental outreach program that Sanctuary, the organization I now work for, runs. And when they came to school and they kind of opened up this window.
How old were you, Tara, when they came to school?
I was 11.
Okay. So you are one of the 1 million Kids for Tigers who grows up to be a champion of nature. Okay.
Yeah, I was 11 years old, and just the fact that there were adults taking my passion and my love seriously was really life-changing for me. And this was a time at which Kids for Tigers was vast. We went to meet Prime Minister Vajpayee. We had a national camp that was held in Ranthambore. I got to spend time with one of the icons of Indian conservation, Fateh Singh Rathore. And so the kind of information I could absorb, I mean, all kids are sponges, the kind of information that I was exposed to really began to shape my idea of both a career in wildlife conservation and what conservation can mean. And the second really, really formative experience for me was maybe a year or so after Kids for Tigers came to school. I found a local animal shelter. I grew up in Delhi. It's called Friendicos. And I began to volunteer at Friendicos. And and that was such a vastly different experience from Kids for Tigers, because at an animal shelter I was doing the kind of really get your hands dirty kind of work. I was, holding sick animals as they were being put to sleep. I was cleaning poop and puke and piss out of cages. I was treating animals. I was bottle feeding orphan animals, and, and and that really allowed me to understand and empathize and understand sentience, that all these emotions that so many humans feel are exclusive to humans. That's not true. These are emotions felt by all kinds of animals and all kinds of species. So those were two things that really began to shape my teen years. And it's a trajectory I just followed, both in terms of animal welfare and wildlife conservation. And it's shaped, that's what's really shaped my life.
You've adopted, I think you're probably one of the few people I know who's adopted like a gazillion abandoned animals. So how many dogs do you have now that you've adopted?
So now that I live in Bombay, unfortunately, we only have 2 cats. And so for 10 years, when I was super active in the animal welfare scene, my house was a 5-minute walk from the animal shelter, which meant that every really tragic case, I'm a sucker for like the really helpless cases. Those are the ones I want to get home. All of them would reach our house, and I think at one point we had 6 dogs, 4 were permanent, 2 were fosters, 6 orphan kittens, and about 43 rabbits in the backyard, which were sheltering there for 2 months while their hutch was being made in the animal sanctuary. So other than the kind of regular suspects in terms of dogs, cats, guinea pigs, bunnies, I also began to get in, say, squirrels or birds. There was once an orphan baby civet. And these are really interesting bonds to build, and you understand so much about nurturing and about what it takes to care for a life.
Yeah, and coexist with all the other species that we co-inhabit our planet with. I know that my childhood was enriched by the experiences that my mother gave me, bringing home an injured bird, taking care of, we always had pets, so always, I can't imagine my childhood without having had these influences. Your mother grows vegetables as well. I know that you have, you've spent a lot of your childhood also in the mountains, and you spoke about the benefit of visiting national parks. I know that, when it's something so common to your life, you don't always have to appreciate the value that it brings to your life. It could be something that you just take for granted, but you don't, Kara. Can you share maybe a moment in your childhood or your growing up years where you looked around yourself and you said, my God, I feel so rich because I have this, or this defines everything I want to protect and be and do.
I don't know if there's any one moment. There are so many moments that have been like that for me, and most of them have always been when I've been in the lap of nature and kind of away from the chaos of the city.
We've actually gone to forest sometimes together, and you've seen how I've sat there and wrapped attention and gotten super irritated with anybody who dares speak. Because I am just mesmerized every time I go to the forest.
And there is so much to be grateful for. And the more you learn about the world, the more injustice you see around you, the more you are able to also appreciate all the many privileges that you have in your own life. And I'm very aware of those. And honestly, that's something I have to credit my parents with too, that they never allowed me to become complacent in my luck. And I was always told that, okay, start to put your money where your mouth is. And I don't mean literal money. I mean, if you're saying you love animals, then do something about it. Don't just talk about it. And I think that's really that's really the philosophy I still work with, that talking about things is great, but doing things is better. There's that rap song, and in it he says, well done better than well said. And I really think that's what it's about.
Yeah, I agree with you. But very few people are able to walk the talk and make their passion into their profession. And you clearly follow this. Tell me, how difficult is it to be a conservationist in India?
Um, well, first let me just explain to anyone who's listening that to call yourself a conservationist, conservation itself is a very broad umbrella for an any number of professions. Whether you're a lawyer or a journalist or a veterinarian, a vet or a project manager, as long as your work is focused towards the end goal of conservation, then you're a conservationist. Uh, it's not easy. I don't think it's easy being a conservationist in the world today. It's not just about India, and that's for multiple reasons. One, of course, is that it's a confusing profession to enter. Most people don't know what it means to be a conservationist, or how you're what educational path you're meant to pursue, or where you can get a break, or where you can get a job, or where you can get experience. So it's confusing in that sense. But more than that, I think it's the realities of conservation that are so difficult to deal with. Every issue across this country has its own particular nuances. It has its own particular obstacles, and each one of them has to be looked at individually, while also trying to meet a larger idea of what conservation should entail for the country. Um, it's also heartbreaking. There's so much. We're living in a time of three existential crises. We are crises. Okay, we're looking at climate change. We're looking at mass extinctions, and now we have a pandemic. And all three of these things have resulted from this human disconnect and disrespect from nature. Um, and and I do feel that I am lucky that I am in a generation that is now pushing really hard for change. Uh, but so much damage has been done. So many lives, both human and animal and plant, have been lost. There is still so much, even amongst the literate, there is so much ecological illiteracy. So there is constantly a feeling of being overwhelmed by the challenges presented to you. And so, yeah, being a conservationist is tough, and I think anyone who works in this field will say the same.
You're a powerful writer, and you use your rich knowledge resource base and your writing skill to champion many campaigns, national campaigns for conservation and wildlife protection and protection of natural habitats. Tell me, who are your favorite writers? I know you've shared a few very powerful books with me, so talk about some of those and tell me who your inspiration has been.
I love reading. I learned to read when I was very young, and through my childhood and up till date, I'm always reading one or multiple books. And I tell you what, as a child growing up in the city, books were what allowed me to explore natural history and learn about things that maybe my parents didn't know so much about, or that my teachers weren't interested in. So there have been a lot of literary influences in my life. When it comes to natural history and conservation, I think in my early teens, I began to read Gerald Darrell, and that was hysterical. It was such a wild ride, and I read every single one of his books. And then, in fact, when I was 19, I had the opportunity to go and work for 2 months at the zoo he established on an island called Jersey. It's in the Channel Islands.
Wow.
And for me, that was like a moment of truth, right? I went from just adoring this man's literature and kind of living these adventures in my head to actually being able to go and live that manifestation of his dreams. So Gerald Darrell was a big influence. In my late teens, there were three. I presume that not many people watching this know too much about conservation, but in the conservation world, there are three women who are referred to as the primates, and that's because each one of them did groundbreaking studies on primates in the world, on the great apes. And who are the great apes? The great apes are humanity's closest relatives, right? So Jane Goodall, Diane Fossey, and Birute Galdikas, these were three women whose works I read cover to cover, and who were inspiring not just for the science and the conservation that they advocated, but for the fact that for the fact that they ventured forward, that they ventured into the unknown. And I think that's something that holds so many of us back: the fear of the unknown, the fear of something not meeting our expectations or ourselves not being able to live up to our own expectations. So reading those three authors was amazing. In India,
I was going to guess Jane Goodall, but I couldn't have guessed the other.
Yeah. So
She's one of my heroes. I absolutely, oh my god, love and admire her. I think she's amazing.
And now, we have so much amazing natural history writing in India too. I'm currently reading a book called The Wild Heart of India. It's what my phone is propped up on right now. It's by a scientist named T.R. Shankar Raman, and it's an anthology of essays. It's amazing. I recently recommended Rewilding by Bahar Dutt and The Vanishing by Prerna Bindra to on another webinar I was on, because these are books that give us a very good understanding of both policy and ground level issues in India when it comes to conservation. Then, of course, there are far more like lyrical or hilarious books. And while we're talking about natural history books, we shouldn't forget that it is possible to have fiction also address conservation issues in natural history. And one book I've been recommending to everyone for the past 2 years is The Overstory by Richard Powers. It's so moving. It's so poignant. So yeah, I have a lot of reading to do, and there's a lot of reading that I've also done.
No, and it's amazing that no matter, and the commonality here is that the first time I met Prerna Bindra was to launch The Vanishing with her.
Yeah.
And I mean, we forged such a deep friendship, and I love and care for her so much.
I'd actually like to say one thing about Prerna here. Prerna Singh Bindra is a writer and a wildlife conservationist. And she has been one of a handful of mentors that have really guided me in life. And this is something I think everyone, no matter what you do, you should look for is mentors. Because there's so much to learn from them. And I began work with Prerna when I was 20. That's a decade ago. At the time, she was on the standing committee of the National Board for Wildlife. And that was my first kind of glimpse into policy and decision making and environmental governance in the country. And the kind of clarity and grit that I saw in Prerna is something that I hope I can and I'm reflecting every day. So she's really an amazing person.
You do. Okay, tell me, what are the national campaigns you're currently working on?
Okay, I'm so happy you asked this question because if any of you have been keeping an eye out, you've noticed that there's been a lot of uproar about various infrastructure projects being cleared during this time, during the lockdown, via virtual meetings. This is very concerning. It means that various bodies of the Ministry of Environment and Forest are approving or deciding on projects that will impact large wilderness areas. Many of them are eco-sensitive, some of them are within protected areas. That could be a national park or a wildlife sanctuary. I actually wrote down a list because I thought you might ask me this question. So one campaign that Sanctuary has been working on is to save the Dibang Valley. The Dibang Valley is a stunning biodiverse region in Arunachal Pradesh. It sits on a biodiversity hotspot. It's one of the most biodiverse regions in the planet, like on the planet. It's amazing. Everything from tigers to takin to gibbons, and so many endemic species too. So currently there are in the Dibang Valley 18 massive hydropower projects planned. The one we are focusing on is the one that is being discussed right now. It's called the Italan Hydropower Project. The arguments against it are it's a laundry list. We have firstly the ecological damage that it will cause. It will see the destruction of a minimum of 270,000 trees in old growth forests, and this is reason enough for all of us to be opposing this project. There's also enough evidence and there's enough scientists and experts who are standing up to tell us that this is a seismically active zone, that this is a region that's prone to landslides and earthquakes, that because of climate change, the glaciers that are feeding these rivers that we want to dam are melting and are expected to melt up to 60% over the next few decades. We have, by the admission of the very people proposing the project, which is Jindal Power Limited, telling us that it looks economically unviable. We have many members of the local and indigenous Idu Mishmi community saying that they don't want this project because of what it could do to their social and societal structures and relationship with the land. So Save the Bag Valley is a big campaign that's running right now, and I'd encourage everyone watching this to go to the Sanctuary Asia handle and become a part of this campaign. Just 2 days ago, my friends in Goa launched a campaign to save Molan. There's beautiful wilderness in Goa, which most holiday goers don't know about because they kind of stick to the beaches. But these forests are very rich, very lush, and currently the Bhagwan Mahabir Wildlife Sanctuary and Molam National Park are threatened by three, not one, not two, but three infrastructure projects. Two, I think, of which have been cleared, and one which is still being discussed within this area. So I have resources for all these. This is another cause that really needs our attention. There is, of course, the campaign to save the Hing Patkai. The Hing Patkai is a rainforest in Assam, and it is being threatened by coal mining.
We reached out to the Chief Minister of Assam, and he did respond to us before the lockdown. And he did reflect a commitment to evaluating this project and ensuring that if it was going to damage or cause the kind of damage that it wouldn't be allowed. We hear our leaders often espouse values that connect very deeply with us, but unfortunately, when it comes down to making decisions and clearing projects, they don't necessarily reflect those same values.
Absolutely.
But having said that, I think that the campaigns that we are able to mobilize and the participation from civil society, young children and young activists from across the country who are building awareness and writing. I know that thousands of letters were written and thousands of signatures were garnered to share with these ministries to help them understand how bad this is, not just for the forest or the region, but for the country on the whole. Because while we reiterate this again and again, it's important to continue to do so, because most people don't understand that the value chain of life starts from nature. I mean, the air we breathe, the water we drink, the food we eat, our health, everything is managed by nature and provided by nature. And while India has 4 major biodiversity hotspots, it's also a land that is struggling to manage and maintain its existing forests because of a need to develop and urbanize our land. And this idea of development or this idea of infrastructure that the West adopted has caused the havoc that we're experiencing on the planet right now. And we need to, and the alternatives exist, the solutions exist. So I would like for you to, once you've shared the other campaigns with everybody who's watching, speak about green nature-based solutions and the alternatives that exist for all of these projects that for some reason we insist on continuing to carry out, despite the fact that they just don't make any.
Yeah. No, I think you brought up a really important point, and I think addressing our aspirations and our definition of development is crucial at this point in the planet's history, and certainly in our future as a species. Okay, I'm quickly gonna just name 1 or 2 other national campaigns that need attention right now.
So Dehing Patkai was the last campaign.
Yeah. So I hear you, and I heard what you said about commitments being made or promises being made to protect this area. But to be honest, when you look into the details of this project, we know that there has been illegal coal mining happening in this area for the past 9 years. We know that this is also an incredibly rich and biodiverse forest. We know that now the project has been approved. I hope that we can campaign against it and halt any more damage to this area. But it's going to require massive public mobilization and political will, which is something that the country has been sorely lacking for years. Another very big campaign that's underway right now is to save the EIA. The EIA is the Environment Impact Assessment. It's a kind of mandatory regulatory procedure that was put into place to literally assess the impacts of big infrastructure projects on the environment. And now a draft notification of an amended EIA has been put forth, and this severely dilutes a lot of the environmental safeguards that the previous version had. So the government is still accepting comments and input from the public on this matter. There are several very well-informed people who are talking about this, who are campaigning against it, and who have letters in place. So definitely the EIA is something that all of us should know about. And then my friend Yuman, who's in Chennai, just a few days ago, taught me about a place I'd never heard of, which is Vedanthangal, and it's an old lake. And now currently there's a proposal to reduce the sanctuary area by 40% in favor of industry. So this is just a short list of some of the projects that have come to light. Just like this one, there are there are dozens of projects planned across the country, many of which are not essential, many of which are being protested by the local people who are going to be the most impacted, and many of which do not have scientific backing. So this world, the world that we live in, this country that we inhabit, is stunning. And very often I hear people feeling very proud of the diversity we have and the tolerance that this nation is known for. But my contention here is, yes, we must be proud of our diversity, but unless we actually begin to work and mobilize to protect it, there's going to be very, very, very little left in the near future.
So, for the knowledge of everybody watching, India at one time had a much larger forest cover, uninterrupted, free-flowing. But unfortunately today we have very fragmented pieces of forest left in the country. 21% forest cover is what we have, and less than 5% of that forest cover is dense forest. When we talk about forests, remember that forests are the birthing grounds of our rivers. They sequester our carbon, they regulate our climate, they provide us the security for food and water, and much of the things that our burgeoning population of second largest population in the world that inhabits a very small landmass on this planet needs for their survival. So when we talk about forest protection, we're actually talking about protecting human lives and human health and human securities. And I just wish more people would understand this. Because while it's one thing to respond towards protection or for protection from a place of love, it's also from a very selfish place. I think we need to acknowledge that it really all of us matter in this conversation. Each one of us can make a difference. And this is not something we're doing for any other species. We're actually doing it for ourselves and our loved ones and our children. And talking about being a part of the sixth extinction or talking about climate change, all of this connects straight back to each and every one of us. So, I hope more people recognize this through this conversation.
I do want to add one thing to that, Dia. There's a big movement towards personal sustainability and living a life that is more in line with the ethics that one espouses. I absolutely back that up. I watched your Instagram live earlier today with Bittu, and in it you mentioned all the things that you do to kind of be a better human being on this planet, whether it's composting and segregating your waste to, carrying your own bags, having your traveling water bottle, which I also have. These are crucial. These are so important to our mental health and to just living in line with the ethics that we believe in. But that is not enough. Simply composting and carrying your own water bottle and not taking a plastic bag at the grocery shop is not enough. We are not at a point where we can imagine that that's all that we need to do in order to be able to protect, preserve, and enhance our natural ecosystems. And which is why it's so important that every person who is able to, who has the interest in, who has grasped the kind of the kind of
Urgency.
the urgency, exactly, to grasp the urgency of the situation, needs to engage with national campaigns and dialogues at a much larger level about where we are going as a country and what we want to be, 10 years from now or 20 years from now. And there is a lot. It is our right and it is our duty to demand accountability from governments, from authority figures, from corporates, many of which are absolutely unethical and are devastating massive landscapes all across the country and the world.
True. And I also think the other thing that all of us can do is support organizations that work towards conservation and wildlife protection. I know how hard it is each time we need to generate money from anybody, any corporate sector, anyone to help mobilize the campaigns that we're working on, or just do work on the ground. Wildlife protection work needs funds just as much as every other thing does.
Absolutely.
And for some reason, it doesn't seem to be a priority. So if each one of us can find a way to align ourselves with at least one organization that is working towards wildlife protection and conservation, then I think that would make a huge difference. And no amount is too little. I think whether it is the vanguards of our natural world, in the form of people who are from civil society, also I think I've recognized the value of engaging with forest guards, forest officials, foresters. They are such a ignored and neglected part of our society. They are our vanrakshaks. They protect our natural ecosystems, and in my opinion, they're as important to our national security as our Air Force or Army or Navy or our police is. So we really need to give our forest departments also the strength and the support that they need to carry out the work that they do every day, and they do it at the risk to life. They're murdered sometimes, they're beaten up by mafias, they of course live in the risk of all kinds of natural calamities. They deal with forest fires, they lead very difficult lives, and they do need us. So that's another thing that some of you watching, if you care for what we're saying and you appreciate the merit in what we're saying, please identify organizations that support our forest departments and our forest officers and rangers. It will make a big difference. Before I wrap this up, I want you to end it with a message, Kara. I know that while the challenge has been enormous and we continue to do the work we can, I do know that we benefit greatly from the fact that young India has risen to the occasion, is participating like never before. Technology has played a very important part in mobilizing this participation. Do you want to talk about what it means for us to now build back from this pandemic? What kind of a future do you hope for, and what makes you feel energized? I feel energized every time I talk to people like you, but that apart.
I can be quite swing like a pendulum on with being either optimistic or being just dejected about the state of the world. My great hope is that this pause that the pandemic has given us, at least a pause for those of us who have been comfortable in our homes through the lockdown and not had our lives thrown into complete disarray, is a fundamental shift in our perception of aspiration, of what nature needs, of what humans need, and of how interconnected we are. This kind of idea that humans are on one side and then all the natural world is on the other side is so false. It doesn't exist. That's not true. We are as much a part of everything as a cat or a tiger or a tree. This is our shared planet. Yeah, exactly. Anything. But okay, this has actually been an incredible 2 months from a conservation activism point of view. I have never before kind of experienced and felt this level of public engagement with conservation issues and with environmental issues. There's certainly a deeper and spreading awareness that nature is not something for the margins. Nature is something that is an everyday, that is everyday, that we need. So all I can say is that the world is still, despite all the horrible things I've said, the world is still a fantastically beautiful place. Every year I have moments where I am in some wilderness, on some mountaintop, in some forest, where I look around me and I just feel at peace, at one, and I'm filled with well-being. I don't even want to call it love. It's just a feeling of fulfillment, and that's something we all need to work towards. And I hope that more and more people get to experience it, because once you've experienced the joy of nature, and science backs all of this up. Science tells us that, as children, we need nature in order to be happy, in order to focus better, in order to have better immunity. And it is my great hope that everyone gets to experience this, because once you feel that, you will be committed to working towards better systems, better governance, and a kind of planet not just for humans, but for all other living beings too.
I couldn't agree more with you. I have nothing more to say to this, because it's the absolute and truth, and it's exactly what we need. But it does start with love, and I'm so grateful that you operate from a place of love and empathy and compassion. And I truly hope that each and every one of us can build back our connection with nature and respond to the natural world with the same amount of love and empathy and compassion as we do to our immediate family and loved ones.
Yeah,
Happy
absolutely.
World Environment Day. Congratulations for being the champion that you are, for being the extraordinary voice, the powerful voice that you are, and thank you for inspiring and motivating me every day of my life, Karan.
I feel the exact same way about you, Dia. I was, just to end, I want to say that the first time I met you, I was a bit dismissive. I was like, ex-beauty queen, how interested is she going to be in this? How seriously is she going to take what we have to say? And I am so, so glad that you proved me wrong in every which way. Not only have you been an amazing friend and supporter of Sanctuary, you were also the first donor to the project I established for Sanctuary called the Mud on Boots Project. You have seen us through terrible days. You have extended yourself to every member of our grassroots network who has looked for support. And really the way forward is through collaboration and, like you said, love. So thank you for having me.
Love you. Thank you everyone for joining us. It's been a very, very hectic World Environment Day, because while it's important to continue engagement, it's not as easy to do it through technology, but I'm really glad that we're able to connect and have these conversations. I hope we can continue to inspire and mobilize change and action. Rohan is talking about being an ambassador for the elephant corridors. There's been so many wonderful comments. Thank you for this session. I'm very grateful to everybody who's joined us, and I hope that we can celebrate the environment and nature every day and find everyday actions and solutions to live as better citizens of our planet.
Bye.